Dragi prieteni, de azi înainte Avdiivka trăiește în sufletele noastre și în mâinile rușilor. Dar ce s-a întâmplat? Păi ce se întâmplă? Această fortăreață, care este un fel de suburbie a capitalei uneia dintre republicile separatiste și de unde eroii ucrainei obișnuiau să bombardeze orașul Donetsk, a picat. Și de ce a picat o să ne explice mai departe prietenul nostru Dima de la canalul de YouTube Military Summary.
Hello my dear friends,
Hello.
you're in the Military Summary channel and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 16th of February of 2024. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, details, progress on the...
Punem un stop cadru aici, vedem orașul Avdiivka, aici este Donetskul. Ok, ce observăm este o încercuire parțială. Prima oară rușii au pus piciorul în oraș, în partea sudică a lui, cum au descoperit o conductă, da? Care i-a condus preț de 1 kilometru sau 2, nu mai știu exact, în oraș, pe străzile orașului. Deci rușii au intrat pe sub pământ, pac, 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 au ridicat un capac de canalizare sau ceva și erau pe străzile orașului și eroii ucraineni s-au panicat. Ce se întâmplă? Suntem cu ruși în spate și s-au predat. Desigur, după care altă manevră foarte inteligentă a rușilor a fost această străpungere. Vedeți? Au lovit de undeva din nord, cam în centrul orașului. Cumva l-au separat în două și au prăbușit apărarea fortăreței. Tare.
The ground still is start, and the most important updates are coming from the central, from the eastern and the southeastern part of Avdiivka. As you can see, I have adjusted the map. Now I have covered the eastern part, the southeast and northeastern part of Avdiivka in the gray zone because according to information we have.
Vedem, asta este zona gri, adică o zonă aflată în dispută, numai că rușii, spre deosebire de alte orașe, nu au fost nevoiți să cucerească ultima stradă și ultima clădire din oraș pentru a-și declara victoria. De altfel, ei nici nu și-au declarat victoria, ci acest lucru l-a făcut partea ucraineană, care a spus că gata, cu Avdiivka ne retragem pe poziții mai avantajoase. Și ne vom întoarce! We will be back! Terminatorii ăștia ucraineni. Vom vedea că așa au spus și cu Bahmutul și hei, s-au întors de nu s-a mai putut. Bine, ei au încercat.
Ukrainians start massive retreating process. They were abandoning their positions without even a possibilities or any chances to destroy armored vehicles that they were abandoning in the eastern, the southeastern part. The Ukrainians basically are run.
Taci. De ce fac? Ei se retrag de aici, o iau prin centrul orașului și au pe undeva pe aici. Cât se mai poate. Ok? Și, în principiu, nu prea mai există drumuri asfaltate care să fie sub controlul lor și toate sunt și sub focul rușilor, așadar mulți dintre ei se retrag prin nămoale. Am văzut un videoclip recent în care se retrageau prin niște nămoale, genul de nămoale în care pui piciorul și când scoți piciorul rămâne bocancul în nămol, cam așa ceva. Care este partea importantă, e faptul că nu se pot retrage și cu echipamentele grele. Deci tancuri blindate, alea rămân în mâinile rușilor.
Running away. They're moving to the central part, they're running to the ninth quarter for their lives, with the purpose to save their lives and to leave Avdiivka as soon as possible or something.
Scapă cine poate!
Like this. So this is the situation in the eastern part. We have some updates from different mappers, from different reports, that this is currently an ongoing process. The Ukrainians abandoning their positions and they're moving and trying to evacuate. Starting this morning, we received significant number of updates from the eastern part. We have like complete confirmation of control over the filtration station. As you can see, we have adjusted the map, and this report took place in the morning. And this is very important thing that when talking about at least the 16th of February, most of the reports about the progress on the ground first were received in the first half of the day, before the noon time of the local time, and the next wave of reports we start receiving after the sun went down and
Uitați-vă și voi ce razna este subtitrarea și traducerea YouTube. Deci îi dăm română, începem să primim după ce soarele goes down, a apus, da? Goes a coborât, sun goes a coborât. Ce e asta, Doamne ferește? E bolnav robotul, care e problema?
we start receiving the second batch of the most important updates. Another important thing we received in the previous, let's say, half of the day in the morning was that the Russians managed to establish control over the stronghold by the name of Cheburashka. In this video we can see the Russians who were establishing the flag.
Steagul asta voiam să spun, să vedem steagul, priviți steagul.
Below the bridge, which is obviously 100% confirmation of complete Russian control over this territory. And after that, after these two updates, we received some batch of piece of news regarding the fire bombings and so.
Stop off. Stați că mai încerc o dată.
These two updates, we received some batch.
Stop. Deci asta este străpungerea sudică, cea făcută prin conducta de sub pământ, de care v-am povestit.
Piece of news regarding the fire bombings and so on, and according to information we have just during the previous 24 hours.
Nu sunt bombardamente îndepărtate, ci bombardamente cu fab, da? Cu acele bombe ghidate de 500 de kilograme, de o tonă și jumătate.
During the previous, let's say, 60 hours, the Russians attacked Avdiivka with around 300 fabs, and this is a significant number.
300 de astfel de bombe. Voi vă imaginați ce a fost acolo?
There are no chances for the Ukrainians to survive after such a heavy pressure and so on. And according to information we have, as we discussed, the Ukrainians, most of the forces that were abandoned by their commanders in Avdiivka were heading and currently are heading in the direction of the ninth quarter, because they still think that they have possibilities to use fields between Laslichkina, Severna and the ninth quarter as the only left evacuation road, but this is not true. You know that now there is this, the current situation is that if I have possibilities to call the Ukrainians in the central part of Avdiivka and to
să-i sune și să le spună, bă, plecați, scăpați-vă vieții.
Stop them, I would do this, because I understand that if Ukrainians from filtration station, from the Tsarskaya Hota, from fortification from the south of Kamyanka knew about the situation in this area, of course they would already surrender to the Russians, because there are no chances for the Ukrainians to cross the fields. And obviously...
Deci nu să fugă, ci direct să se predea rușilor. Da? Că și fugitul ăsta este periculos cu că am fost sub bombardamentul rușilor.
Coming night is the final night of Avdiivka, because during this night the Ukrainians will try to use the roads, will try to use the fields, and obviously this is not going to
use the fields. Deci prin nămoale.
Be something centralized, something, let's say, organized by the Ukrainian authorities. This is going to be just evacuation and running for their lives. And who survived is the winners. Who doesn't survive is the loser of this game.
Scapă cine poate.
Of evacuation from Avdiivka. Furthermore, we continue receiving updates from the fields, and the Russians are saying that since the beginning of this morning of the local time, they were bombing this territory heavily with significant number of FABs and artillery, and they're not giving Ukrainians even
un număr semnificativ de FAB bombe ghidate, nu de aplicații. Doamne, ferește!
Single chance to use this road, and we need to understand a few important things about this territory, because the Russians are waiting for upcoming night as well as the Ukrainians, because this is the only period of time when the Ukrainians have at least small chances for evacuation. At least the Ukrainians think like this. Obviously the Russians understand that there are no chances for them, and I'm trying to say that the battle for Avdiivka has ended.
Bătălia pentru Avdiivka s-a încheiat bătălia propriu-zisă și urmează bătălia politică, războiul propagandistic. Aici sunt convins că vor învinge eroii Ucrainei.
Battle for Avdiivka has ended. Now we are, let's say, at the beginning of political battle for Avdiivka. The Russians now currently the main purpose and the main goal of the Russians is not to establish control over Avdiivka, but to encircle and surround as much as possible, as many as possible soldiers. They can use them in the future as a very powerful argument in negotiations with Zelensky, furthermore with Ukrainian society. The Russians need to show the convoys of Ukrainians. They need to start not.
Da, corect, să arate convoaiele de prizonieri de la Avdiivka, așa cum au arătat convoaiele de prizonieri evacuați de la Mariupol, mai precis de la Azovstal. Da, îi știți pe tatuație.
Other, let's say, political process or criminal process against the Ukrainians who were bombing Donetsk with multi-launch rocket systems, with artillery and so on.
Da? Deci Dima spune și el chestia asta, că din Avdiivka eroii ucraineni bombardau capitala Republicii Donetsk. Da? Orașul Donetsk.
The Russians.
Acum 2-3 săptămâni au efectuat un bombardament cu muniție cu disperse asupra unei piețe din Donetsk și am urmărit videoclipul la Patrick Lancaster și cât o-i trăi nu o să pot să-mi dezlipesc de pe retină imaginea cu vânzătorul de mandarine întins în zăpadă și zăpada înroșită în jurul lui, dar nu de la mandarine. Da? Mandarinele erau risipite prin jur, rămăsese cumva cutia de carton pe care ținea lădița cu mandarine. Dacă era un piețar de ăsta care vindea cumva stradal. A fost și nu mai este. Pentru ce?
Need this as air. This is the vital question for them. The Russians want to show the same picture as they shown us in Mariupol. For example, also we have some
Mariupol, nu în Mărul.
updates from the central part, from the east territory. During the first half of the day, we received.
Ia uite, străpungerea asta prin centru și faptul că rușii au ocupat fizic, da, o arteră de aprovizionare și de retragere.
A significant number of reports from in the vicinity of the chemical plant. The Russians published the video of Russian flag of one of the squads on the statue on the entrance of Avdiivka, the statue where Zelensky made his own video. So this is.
Deci, ați înțeles ce au făcut rușii, da? Au pus steagul cu roșu, cu seceraș ciocanul, cred că ăsta este, da? În locul unde Zelensky a făcut un TikTok din Avdiivka și a spus Avdiivka niciodată nu va fi cucerită de cotropitorul rus. Și rușii acum au spus, a, da? Joacă pe asta. Asta au făcut.
It's like complete control over
Iar,
this.
ca să ne înțelegem, da? Pun rușii steagul roșu pentru că sunt niște comuniști. Nu, ci pentru ruși, steagul ăsta roșu cu seceraș ciocanul are mai degrabă simbolul victoriei împotriva nazismului, da? Că ăsta era steagul lor când au înfrânt Germania nazistă.
Part of the area. Furthermore, we got additional video and pictures and reports about Russian control over the area in the base of chemical plant along the railways. And right before I start making the video, we got additional control, additional video of Russian progress and Russian control in the central part. And as a result of offensive operation, the Russians established.
Vedeți aici istorie sub ochii voștri. Dar ce steag ciudat au instalat acolo în centrul orașului Avdiivka.
Control over the central park, the hospital. So we
Parcul central,
see that the Russians see no resistance from the Ukrainian side, no barriers, no clashes. The Russians are just moving, and the only barrier they have is traps, mines, and some surprises that were left by the Ukrainians during the withdrawing process. So this is the situation in this area. When talking about industrial aid, we got also the video that was published by the Ukrainian sources. For example, in this video, we can see the active vigilant strike against the Russian soldiers who were moving along Industrial Avenue. So this is the situation that also confirms additional Russian progress. And also, when I start making the video, the sources reported about the fact that the Russians established control over this industrial plant also along Industrial Avenue. So we see no resistance from the Ukrainian side. And the biggest problem.
Iarăși vedem care ar fi rutele de evacuare. Vedem că unele ar fi direct prin câmp. Asta în mod evident și cred că și asta. Aici ar putea fi un pic de asfalt.
For the Ukrainians is that the Russians launched their offensive operation from the Tsarskaya Khota, from former air defense base, from Okuta in direction of
ce fac rușii? Vin acum și din sud. Da? Și încearcă să sugrume rutele de evacuare ale Ucrainei.
Ninth quarter with the purpose to close the hat, to close Avdiivka cauldron and to capture and surround as many as possible Ukrainian soldiers. Some sources have already reported about the ongoing clashes inside of the ninth quarter, and obviously this is going to be a complete disaster. Currently, we don't know how many soldiers were abandoned by the Ukrainian commanders inside of Avdiivka. Maybe there are a few thousands of soldiers, maybe there are
5,000, da.
Of soldiers, maybe 4. Yesterday we were talking about 3.5 thousands of soldiers, but for now we don't know for sure. Obviously, a few thousands of soldiers will be captured by the Russians if they have brains and they're enough smart to understand that there are no way to escape and no way to evacuate from this area. And you know,
să încerci. Dacă nu prea se poate, se predea și live to fight another day.
That Avdiivka, the battle for Avdiivka, obviously is going to move in history as the probably.
Ce bine a spus-o frumos. Bătălia de la Avdiivka se va muta în istorie alături de bătăliile de la Mariupol și Bahmut.
Biggest achievement of the Russian armed forces during the special military operation, at least during the previous 2 years of clashes, because now we have right and we have possibilities to compare the battle for Avdiivka with the two main battles that took place in the previous phases of the special military operation. I'm talking about the battle for Mariupol and the battle for Bakhmut. And as you can see, the Russians use completely different approach with the comparison with the previous battles. The thing is, if we compare these 3 battles, the first thing that comes to my mind, at least, that when talking about the battle for Mariupol and battle of Bakhmut, the Russians didn't have possibilities to announce the victory in those 2 battles until they established control over the last square meter of those cities.
Deci ați înțeles, la Mariupol și la Bakhmut, rușii și-au anunțat victoria abia după ce au ocupat ultimul cotez de pe ultima străduță din respectivele orașe. La Avdiivka n-a fost necesar, a fost nevoie doar de străpungerea asta cumva pe centrul orașului și s-a prăbușit apărarea ucraineană. Și până una alta, nu rușii au anunțat victoria, ci ucrainenii spunând că ne retrage pe poziții mai avantajoase, desigur. Da? Deci, mare diferență și o victorie mai rapidă decât cea de la Bakhmut. Bine, și orașul este de 2 ori mai mic, dar pe de altă parte mult mai întărit, fortificat.
We're talking about Mariupol, we're talking about Azovstal, and when talking about Bakhmut until the Russians established.
La Mariupol a fost Azovstal, ultima redută, și la Bakhmut a fost Citadela, cartierul cu blocuri comuniste de 10 etaje.
Control over the citadel. Only after that they managed to announce about the victory and establishing complete control. But when talking about Avdiivka, we see a completely different approach from the Russian side, and the thing is that the Russians needed and they established.
Deci vedeți, oraș, ruși.
There's control over just 10% of the stronghold, and the entire defense belt collapsed, and basically the Russians have already won this battle. Just 10%. Imagine yourself how the Russians managed to improve their skills for the previous 2 years of the special military operation. Another important thing that this is the first offensive victory of the current head of Russian army. We are talking about the Gerasimov, the commander-in-chief. This is he. This is it. This is Valery Gerasimov, the chief of the general staff of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. This is his, let's say, second victory on his position. The first victory, we can say, the defense, let's say, when the Ukrainians were defeated during their greatest counter-offensive operation. That was his first victory. And Avdiivka is his...
Ați înțeles, Avdiivka este prima victorie ofensivă, dar nu e și prima victorie a lui Gerasimov ăsta, că el a mai avut și victorii în defensivă. Da?
Second victory on his position, and once again completely different
approach. La Zaporozhye, acolo, un Robotin.
Approach when talking about, let's say, the battle for Bakhmut, Prigozhin, the head of Wagner, spent significant number of resources. He was storming Bakhmut for around up to 1 year, a little bit less than 1 year.
No,
and of course, only after taking under control the last building in the citadel, he had possibilities to announce about the victory. To tell the truth, when talking about Avdiivka, I believe that the Russians can announce the victory right now, because obviously the battle has ended. Now the Ukrainians try to run away and to save for their lives. And you know that today we also was published very interesting video by the Ukrainians. This video took place not today.
Da, știu clipul. Bucuria de a fi renăscut. Ia, priviți.
Okay, let's take a look at this video from the beginning. This video took place a few days ago when the Ukrainians
Râde, mă, e fericit.
and pay attention to this guy who is like in front of the screen. Take a look at his face and just mention how happy he was when he had the chance to evacuate. You see happy Ukrainians who were raising their let's say fingers, saying that everything is okay, that Avdiivka hell is behind of them. Take a look at his face once again. Just take a look at his eyes and how happy he is. And when I saw his face for the first time, I understand that even he in that situation didn't believe. And
Zelenski, privește-l pe omul ăsta și bucură-ți și restul soldaților, salvează-i pe toți, că oricum lupta este fără rost.
Wasn't for 100% sure that he managed to survive and managed to run away and to escape from Avdiivka. And when I saw his face for the first time, you know what came to my mind? I think that he thought something like this, and that's it for today. Military Summer Channel reminds you that we condemn any violence in Ukraine. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, and bye bye. So this.
Put your likes în acest videoclip, în acest moment dați like la acest videoclip. Gluma lui Dima este ceva de genul că el așa își încheie videoclipurile, da? Și cumva așa își termină munca și cumva se simte și el ușurat, dar probabil acest băiat s-a simțit mult mai ușurat că și-a încheiat munca din Avdiivka. Să sperăm că nu este cel care a bombardat piața din Donetsk, ai scut.
That was something that happened in his head when he was running away from Avdiivka. They are very happy. They managed to survive, and this is probably the last luckiest guy in Avdiivka who managed to do this, because
the last luckiest guy from Avdiivka.
The Ukrainians who are currently stuck in nice port in the central part probably will not be able to evacuate and will never be so happy as this guy. So this is the situation in this area. Furthermore, additional Ukrainian sources reported about military riots in the forces, that the Ukrainian militaries are very upset with the current situation, that Ukrainians haven't prepared the evacuation, the abandoning positions. And furthermore, we got a very interesting video, also somewhere from Avdiivka direction. For example, in this video, we can see how the Ukrainians started preparing the trenches.
Nu știu, abia acum se apucă să-și facă tranșee. Nu trebuia să-și sape tranșele mai din timp, să se retragă direct tăriale. Cam ciudat. Sloppy. Len.
Were in front of Orlovka, Toninka, not very far from Avdiivka. They are very upset because they understand that nothing was prepared. Nothing was prepared by the military authorities. There are no trenches, and we need to understand that.
Băi, ce nenorociți, mă, îi așteptau pe ea să iasă din iardul de la Avdiivka, da? Ca tot ăștia abia scăpați cu viață să pună mâna pe lopeți.
Who are leaving Avdiivka, they don't have positions to leave. They have just fields, maybe cities and towns, and nobody can give us the answer where the Russians are going to stop. Because once again, Gerasimov, the head of Russian army, managed to conduct probably the most successful operation ever since the beginning of the special military operation. And I have real doubts whether the Russians lost 5,000 soldiers during that operation. Of course, there were, let's say, significant losses from the Russian side when they were storming from Krasnogorovka.
Da, deci vorbește despre pierderile rușilor, da? pierderi pe care le-au suferit când au asediat Avdiivka.
Towards the railways, maybe they
Assaulted.
lost. We saw those videos of clashes with Stepova. Maybe the Russians lost like lots of armored vehicles and soldiers. But when talking about the active phase of Avdiivka, I have some doubts whether the Russians lost even maybe less soldiers in comparison with the Ukrainians.
Asta e clar.
And when talking about Ukrainians and those who got encircled, very likely the Russians even had less losses in comparison with the Ukrainians. Once again, just during the previous 24 hours, we got report about the capturing of the stronghold to the south, filtration station, Chiburashka, Central Park and the hospital, Industrial Avenue, and the area in the vicinity of Brivno fortification. So it's done. It's already done. The battle for
over.
Avdiivka has done that. And just who has some connections with Ukrainians in this cauldron, please call them and ask them to surrender, because it's time to start political war, no political clashes for Avdiivka, not the physical one. Now we're moving further to...
Și acum nu ne mai moving forward nicăieri, pentru că încheiem acest videoclip adresând mulțumiri celor care mă susțineți din postura de membri ai canalului Noaptea Minții și celor care mă susțin pe Patreon. Și nu uitați de like și vă aștept la comentarii. Pa, pa!